There is a life force, a vitality, an energy, quickening, that is translated through you into action. And because there is only one of you in all of time, this expression is unique. And if you block it, it will not exist in any other medium, and it will be lost. The world will not have it. It is not your business to determine how good it is, nor how valuable, nor how it compares to the expressions of others. It is your business to keep it yours, clearly and directly, to keep the channel open. You do not even have to believe in yourself or your work. You have to stay open and aware to the urges that motivate you. Keep the channel open. No artist is pleased. There is no satisfaction whatever at any point. There's only a queer divine dissatisfaction, blessed unrest. Keeps us marching and makes us more alive than others. Martha Graham. Welcome to the channel. This is a show about art, process of making art, the people who do it. In a moment, I'm going to have Ferrell Dixon come out here and join me before we welcome our esteemed guest that we have today. The purpose of the channel is to really dig into that Martha Graham quote with other artists. This concept about allowing ourselves to really be free to create the thing that inspires us and to be sensitive to it, to disconnect ourselves from the source of where our art comes from, or our creative energy. In many ways, I think that's extremely liberating to do so and is very advantageous. The other part of that quote that I really like is the part where she says, no artist is pleased, there's no satisfaction, whatever, at any point. It continues to have some optimistic hope at the end, but I think the general idea is that you just got to recognize that, no artist is pleased. You just got to keep doing it. Always keep making it. So that's kind of our attitude here on the show, and that's what we're going to get into. So with that, I'd like you to give me a warm welcome as I welcome out the co-host, Prince Ferrell.
Hey. Do I sit here?
That part there, yeah.
All right, sweet. Hey.
How are you doing?
Pretty good, I'm so excited to talk to Skip.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
He's, I've been a fan of Skip since, I don't know, since I first saw his work, I guess. The moment I saw it, I was just like, oh shit.
Yeah.
This is an artist. That was it was clear to me. I could see like a difference of like every other artist I had met or seen versus Skip in his work. Have you been in his studio?
Yeah, for sure. And just like the intricacies in his work,
Mm-hmm.
He's definitely one of those artists that you like see, even if you don't know their name. Like you definitely like seen their work. You'd be like, oh, okay. But yeah, I'm so excited to
distinct. And that's the challenging thing, is to like make work that's distinct. It's not just copying other people. That's also good. Because you can make something that is different because nobody needed to see it because it sucks. And it's like, yeah, it's unique because it's like, but it's also trash.
See, but okay, I was having this deep conversation with my team about, like, since we're in the era of content creation, like, does it matter to be that unique? Or does it matter to just kind of give what the assignment needs to give?
That's it. Well, we should get into that. I think that is a perfect
That's some sick shit to think about, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is. Because it's like, if we're not even appreciating like a gallery piece and we're just looking at it on social media as like a little block, then it's like, well, damn.
Well, I think we talked about those. I think they're like two different mediums. If they're just two different things. Like painting or video or dance or whatever you do, like in real life versus like how it shows up on a screen, a totally different thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I think you and I were talking about this when we had lunch. We were talking about what is it? They Botticelli piece when you were at the Uffizi, and I was like, in the textbook, it's this big.
Yeah.
But then you get there and it's like,
there's literal gold thread in that painting. Like you see actual threads of gold, like gold.
Yeah.
Like 24 karat gold. Yeah. Like I did not know there was gold in this painting. That's crazy.
But then it's like, it's like, oh, art history class, like learn about this. And then it's like this little ass,
little thumbnail.
But then now, social media is like, now it's a little.
Well, this to me, I think is a perfect topic to segue with our guest. And with that, I'd like to welcome now honestly, he's like the best artist. I think he's the best artist in Tulsa. I'm gonna say it. I'm gonna say the best visual artist in Tulsa. Fight me. He's incredible. So we're gonna get into all of his accolades. He's in institutions, he's in collections, he's been all over the world. His work is renowned, and people know that he knows what he's doing. When you see it, you just know. With that, everybody, please give me a warm welcome to the one and only Skip Hill.
Okay, pleasure. Thanks for having me here.
Bad boy.
Yeah, man. For the first time I saw your first episode, I was like, dude, you better get me on your show. I know that much. I'll wait. But
well, thank you for being here.
Absolutely,
I really do.
man.
We were talking about our first. I was telling you were standing there. You saw the whole thing.
Yeah.
When I first went into your studio and I saw your work, I was taken away by a variety of things in a very uniform, kind of cohesive way.
Yeah.
Your color palettes were very consistent.
Yeah.
But in an arrangement that, like, to me felt new and fresh and unfamiliar. So that tells me right away that, like, you've been doing this, you've been honing that in, because you can get, like, here's some colors you haven't seen before, but for me to consistently carry that is a different task.
No.
And then the execution, I can see like a tremendous amount of time in the work, and I can see this guy is not just like, these aren't a 2-hour thing.
No.
This is a long, and I could also see the detailed storytelling that you put into it. So there's lots of work before you even get to the canvas. There's lots of prepping, learning, discovery, research, musing, that kind of stuff. All of that's evident. And you're also representing the Black story. You tell that very well. And again, in a way that didn't seem like somebody else has told it. But your work isn't like, it's not, it's work that defies, like, or not defies, but goes beyond just like a simple, like, I don't know how, like, my Black history paintings feel like very, like, this is what this is like a Black people thing.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's making sense, but I feel like a lot of Black artists, it's hard to do that and to be taken seriously and tell the Black story at the same time.
Right.
It's easy to get kind of pigeonholed into this kind of, I don't know, corny, in my opinion. It can become corny.
I'm looking and I see more and more of it. And look, there is in my story, in my time, in my journey, I'm old enough to remember where there was very limited representation for African American artists. And then I had to deal with the reality of living in Oklahoma, kind of settling here, growing up here and spending years away and then coming back here. Initially, there were some market considerations as far as who would actually purchase my art since I was living from it. And but there's no getting away from the African diaspora, the African American experience. It's there. But by the same token, me being Black doesn't limit me to not absolutely loving Japanese aesthetics, right? Or Dutch old masters, despite whatever the colonial issues are, the aesthetics from the 17th century of the golden age of the Dutch, it's resonating. I live there, speak the language. And
wow.
And
That's
so,
really
of course, getting to go to these great European museums where you see paintings that, like you said, were just a postage stamp on a page in your art history book, and then you go there and it's like, be right in front of it. And to see the brushstroke of Vincent van Gogh, you don't see him in a way looking at an art history book. So all of that kind of folds into what I do. Yes, I love Jacob Lawrence. I love Romare Bearden. I love these Milo Jones, these icons of African American art, particularly contemporary African American art. But I also love Frans Hals from Dutch painter, and I love Utamaro. I love the Japanese woodcut artists who I look at their work and it's so incredibly contemporary. Yet this stuff was being made about the time of the American Revolution.
Yeah,
and yet it looks like it could have been made a month ago, a couple of years ago. So all of that folds into my aesthetic, and I am pretty much humanist in my outlook towards things. And so I do like to embrace different aspects of the beauty, the creme de la creme, even the gritty stuff of different cultures.
Yeah, no, and I think that you really hit on something that I resonate with as a Black artist too, because um, I feel like we're all trying to make timeless pieces, and that's kind of what you were saying about all those pieces of work.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you can't unexist as a Black person, but like, whatever you make is going to be considered Black art, I suppose,
Because
right?
you're Black.
Yeah.
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 Like I think like even like all the kids, I call them Basquiat, but it's like
Don't
all
get
the
me started.
Basquiat derivative art.
Yeah.
But it's like Basquiat. You
No, I like it. That's good.
kind of ate
That's
their
good.
ass up.
Print
Kind of ate
that.
them up.
That's a
Print
good
that.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just like I would say that people would feel like that's just American art in the same way that someone would say that like Prince is just American pop or like American music. It's like
I don't know, just fragmenting the experience of like Black American. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
So
But everything becomes derivative. But I will say this. It becomes derivative. But I will say this. As a starting point, it's a good place to start. As a young artist, you look to someone who you identify with, either through their life, through the art itself, through their concepts that they use. You look for someone that you see who's speaking in a voice that resonates with you. So I get that. I tell young people, like you said a minute ago, find that person who you like, that their work resonates with you, copy it, study it, research why they do, what this means, technique, whatever. But at some point, and let's say this with our Basquiat knots or Nazis, at some point you have to break away from putting a crown on everything. You have to break away from this kind of imitative graffiti thing, because in time that's going to get played out.
yeah, because I mean, even if you look at Basquiat's work, he's clearly inspired by Picasso, but it's not Picasso, it's Basquiat.
And he was inspired by street graffiti, but his life experience was not hood culture. He didn't live in the hood. He didn't live in the ghetto. He wasn't living up in the Bronx. His folks his dad was an accountant. They lived in a townhouse. He didn't grow up poor. His family had resources. He fell out with his father, and his mother had mental health issues. And so there's a romanticized story about. There's a romance about Basquiat, just as there was a romance built around Van Gogh. And Americans love it. I think most people, particularly Americans, love this kind of tragic,
Horror
romantic narrative about people. But yeah, so to the point of younger artists imitating, copying, that's great.
Yeah.
I encourage that. But at some point, you have to find your own voice. And it takes commitment. It takes it's a process to get to that place. But if you have a voice, you have to find that voice, because there are people who make a perfectly good living as illustrators, give you a concept, you draw it out. There's nothing of you that really needs to be in there other than technique and skill, and whether it's digital, whether it's analog drawing. You just meet. That's what I did early on in my life. My first job was I was a in-house artist for a department store. So I had to draw forks and towels and women in clothes and guys wearing ties and suits. There wasn't a whole lot of my voice in it. I just had to replicate what I saw on the rack what the buyers brought in, and then put my little sprinkle on that. But it really took me going to Europe and realizing that I just want to make art for art's sake, as opposed to making art that had an invoice attached to it. So there have been many different iterations of what Skip Hill art is, but all of that led into the very qualities that you mentioned, whether it's color, composition, thematically. I have a buddy of mine who says, what I love about your work is that I love how you finish. There's at a certain point, you have to put a finish on it, and you have to finish clean and finish strong. And I do admittedly take some pride in that.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. That makes that's like notes for me.
Yeah,
because I'm thinking about that, and I'm like, I very rarely feel like I have pieces that I feel like I really finished.
Do you have pieces that disappoint you?
A lot.
Those are the good ones.
Yeah.
Those are the good ones. You'll
Let's
draw
talk
more
about
from
that.
those than the ones that you absolutely love.
Mm.
You know, because the one that you absolutely love is pretty much done. The ones that you're not really thrilled about is where you learn from, how would I do this again if I were to approach this painting? What can I take that I didn't do in this one into the next one? You'll learn more from the ones that aren't great than you will from the ones that are really great.
It makes sense. It's a lot easier to know what it is that you're looking for when you
Yes.
know what it isn't.
When you know what it
Yeah.
isn't. And
Yeah.
but the other thing is this idea that every piece that you make is going to be great. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're going to have some standouts. All the great masters, they all had those are the ones that go for the most money. Those are the ones that we all know. Van Gogh's Bedroom at Arles, Starry, Starry Night.
Mm-hmm.
Those are some of his better works. He had some others that really weren't that good.
Yeah.
They were okay, but they weren't that good.
Right. They're not the ones that are they're not the priceless ones.
The ones that they're the iconic ones that we
I think
have.
this goes with like every artist though. If you think about
Agreed.
in like every art form, it's obvious,
Mhm.
right? Like think of
Yes.
the Bee Gees.
Top tens.
Right? They have a few really cool songs, but like I don't know anybody who's like listening to the Bee Gees full. I could
The
be
whole
wrong.
catalog.
Maybe it's actually amazing, but
It probably
you know, the point is like there's the few really good ones.
yes.
And I feel like that to me is like,
Yeah.
you know, the moments where we're able to touch divinity or whatever that thing is. It's not every day,
No.
right? It's like these moments where the clouds part and the light comes down and you get the channel is open or whatever, and you
Ooh.
just the magic happens.
Yeah.
And usually, in my experience, the pieces that I like the most or I'm the most excited about, I feel like had that moment looking back.
Right.
But in that moment, I didn't feel like that at all. In the moment, I wasn't like, this is it. I'm creating the masterpiece. This is amazing. It wasn't like that.
No.
It was afterward, I'd look back and like, oh, that was pretty cool. And then it would be one that would stick. Well, I would continue making art and the other stuff was like garbage by comparison. And that also helped me look back and go, wow, okay, that thing actually was, I don't think I can just do that every day.
You can't do it every day. It doesn't resonate in the way that it resonated in that moment if you do it every day. Everything falls into monotony if you do it every day. It's when it hits.
Man, but you said the thing about like the one that's finished, you won't come back to. That's so interesting to hear that now because I'm thinking about some of my pieces that I like the most. And those are ones that I've tried to recreate. I go, okay, this is a good idea. This is a good recipe. We should do more of that. And all the other ones afterward, I feel like often don't. Like that first one just had this quality.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have told me that. And it irritated me because I'm like, no, it didn't. No, it didn't. I didn't know what I was doing. By the end, I had really figured it out. I had done it enough times and really like dialed it in. And the one that's I feel is like dialed in, other people are like, I don't know. The first one was
the jam.
Yeah. And it's like that with musicians. It's like that
Exactly.
with actors. It's usually like the first take is usually the
You get one number if you're a recording artist. You get one number that's the hit. Okay, either through business decisions, or you want to recreate that same kind of energy from that one hit. Like to your point with the Bee Gees, I love the Bee Gees, man, but it's a small part of their catalog that I like,
right,
and from a particular time period, before or after, didn't really care for their stuff,
right.
just didn't, But
Yeah.
for this particular time period, You Should Be Dancing. Shoot, man, that song's got to be close to 50 years old, 40
Yeah.
years old, but you start listening to it and you break it down to different instruments, it's like, man, the producer, how it was produced. I'm like, man, this shit is the jam all these years later. Other stuff in their catalog, not so much.
I mean, like there's some moments where artists make something so good it spins off like a whole genre.
Yeah.
Right? Like the Bee Gees in a way have this whole, how many other genres today, like house music and stuff are referencing disco and stuff from like a few influential artists. But I don't know. It seems like I don't know. That was a random thought I just had.
Random thoughts are good.
Tell me to steer.
The brain just kind of tripped down the
I was
stairs a
just
little
kinda
bit.
like, as
Grab
we're
for the
talking, I
rim.
was like, man, that's crazy.
It's
Because
all
some
crazy.
artists have these moments that are so great that idea becomes way bigger than I'm sure they could ever intend. It's like when you make, I don't think they thought that people from
for decades are going to like try to recreate things we've done, but in a different way, and like draw like Basquiat, right? We're talking about how many people are drawing from this artist who was just doing their own thing, right? They're
And the thing about Basquiat is listening to an interview with his first girlfriend. She said a lot of his paintings were a lot of his text, this kind of scattered text. She says a lot of it was really related to something that happened that day. And she said, so he really was, in a way, look at the paintings as a journal page. And they kind of look like that. They when I first saw them, they had this sense of doodles that you did in your science class when you really were supposed to be focusing on, your science class, botany or whatever, chemistry or whatever. And he was back there doodling. It has that kind of aspect to it. But she said it's not as if he had some great grandiose concept as he approached it. He was documenting the day that he stepped in some bird shit or that he whatever. And so there is this kind of in the moment, contemporary, electric moment of the benign, of the banal, of the kind of everyday. That was the beauty of what he did. So think about his work as a diary page in a sketchbook, and that's where he lifted off. But again, I think his ego was such, because the more I read about him, the more I study about him, and I think he's an incredible. I've seen some of his works in person that I was disappointed in, and I even love that, the idea that this guy is not.
Yeah.
Everything that he did was not great. He's got some stuff that's sloppy, that didn't finish well. He didn't finish well at all.
Yeah.
I'm sure he was paying bills. Not only that, but people are throwing money at him for his paintings if he would produce them quick enough. So not everything's going to be great. It's just not. He's he really was he could be really cruel to people. People who knew him said, man, he could be incredibly charming, incredibly generous, and then other times just a real asshole with people. He'd sleep with your girlfriend and had no problem with you knowing about it.
Damn,
So,
savage. I just out of here. That's
yeah.
crazy.
So, but I do think that if he were to come back, and I've thought this many times, if Jean-Michel came back, he'd strut around and like, this is the way it was supposed to unfold. Of course, I knew this was going to happen. But if you approach Vincent Van Gogh, he might lose his freaking mind with the impact that he's had on that his art. If he saw the reach and the impact of his artwork today, I think he would lose his mind. And I don't think his mind was lost back then. Vince would have got a script, went and took a pill, and he'd be balanced out, man. He'd be all right. He would be,
He'd be crushing it.
Today, he'd be all right. I don't know if the work would be as great. I like to think the work would be great, even today. But he just needed a script.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been
Many of us do.
Many of us do.
Yes, many of us do.
I kind of want to steer the conversation.
I wanted to say something too.
Go ahead, please.
About what you guys are talking about. I think what you're saying about when you make art too, and you can feel like the one that you really went hard on, and like everyone loves this one. I've been really this idea of flow state.
Oh.
And so it's like, if you're in flow state, it's just kind of coming out. So when you were saying he was doodling and just, letting it out, it was flowing. But then when you're trying to really curate this image and this expectation, it becomes very much so, what's the other word I'm looking for? Restrictive. It's like you're not flowing anymore. You're trying to exist in these confines.
Yeah. And there is this thing about control. I say with like watercolor. Watercolor is a medium that you really have to maintain a degree of control, but there is also room for looseness in there, which, there is a flow. Watercolors is literally working in a flow state, but the idea of the flow state, which I think is very important. I love talking about the process of creativity, even more than technique. Technique can be anything. You'll find that, you'll develop that, you'll come up with that. But the mental process of creativity is what I really, certainly as I've gotten older, that I really enjoy, because that's the thing that you can pass on to anyone. I can't, I may have a technique that you'll never get down. But in order to start your journey, or at any point in your journey, if you can understand the idea of flow state, when I hear people say, hey, have you done any work, whatever it is, Yeah, I'm just kind of waiting for some inspiration. I don't really feel inspired. Maybe I need to, it's like, here's the deal. Pro tip. You don't, inspiration doesn't come when you're sitting working, waiting on it. Inspiration comes when you're working.
Yeah.
When you're just kind of playing, when you're just kind of, even the kind of frustration of working, moving color around, moving pieces around, that's when inspiration comes. You got to give her a reason to come and pay
To show up.
attention, to
Yeah.
show up. It's like, what
Totally.
you doing? Oh, I'm just sitting over here waiting for inspiration to come. She moves on. But if what are you working on? Ooh, that looks good. I like the energy here. Yeah, all right, cool. Let's see what we can do together and enter into the flow state. And I do believe there's a certain kind of pre-preparation that happens with the flow state. But this idea of kind of having to control everything, I love walking up to a canvas, a big piece of paper, whatever. I've got, and I full disclosure, I know what it likes to get, even now, I know what it's like to get into kind of a fallow, period when I'm just not really feeling. I've got other things in my life. My whole life isn't about making art. I got other stuff going on as well. And you kind of fall into a place, but over the years, I've come to trust, and I kind of refer to it as, so you got a field, you plow a field, you plant a crop, you harvest the crop. Before you plant that next crop, the field will be fallow through the winter, but what's happening underground during the winter in the soil prepares you for spring when it comes back, prepares the soil for seed. And that's kind of how I look at it. So I don't freak out anymore when it's like, man, I'm just not feeling it. I don't know what to do. I just kind of roll with it. But there's something about having your materials around and saying, yeah, I really would just as soon watch YouTube shorts all evening.
Yeah.
And have that voice say to you, do me a favor. Just spend 5 minutes with this piece over here. Just give me 5 minutes with this. And then you can go back to your YouTube video. That 5 minutes, I guarantee you will turn into
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
30 minutes,
that's
an hour. And that's where the
experienced
good
that, yeah.
stuff happens.
It's
when you don't
always-
want to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, I really just want to,
It's one
I
of
really
the
just
least
want to,
convenient.
Yeah, stuff to handle
I just
that.
want
Oh my gosh, yes.
flake off over here.
Yeah.
And when that voice says, all right, man, that's cool, but if you could just come over and, do a couple of, sing a couple of bars or whatever.
Yeah.
Spend 10 minutes with this. That opens the gateway to the flow state.
There's something about this experience I've learned where you have an impending end in sight, gives your brain kind of some relaxation to approach that thing you don't want to do.
You mean in the course of producing it?
Yeah.
You see the end in sight?
Well, let's say there's some like hard stop. You're like, well, I have to go to work.
Okay.
Go clock in. So early in the morning, it may be very inconvenient to like, oh my gosh, here's the poem or the writing or the manual is you're writing before you have this clock coming. But there's something freeing about that, because if it's something you've been dreading to do, it gives you kind of a way out. There's like an excuse to like, well, it's gonna have a definite end at some point.
Right.
So what's 15 minutes? But then once you get going, you're like, oh, why did I dread this? I'm good at it. And then you start going, and then you do have the interrupter. But then, so as an artist, I find like as I'm, right before I have to go do something, that's when I'm the most interested in approaching. If it's a thing I've been avoiding,
right? If
it's some challenge, and yeah,
I really feel the commonality, because here's the thing: you can feel like you're the only one that goes through this process, that has these mental states, that has these different kind of, just the little things, the little games that we play with ourselves as far as thinking about what we do. So there's a certain joy I find of, you do that too?
Yeah.
Oh, you do that too? All right.
I'm not alone. Yeah.
Oh man, I feel you. I do the exact same thing, man. Wait till the last minute, and then you knock it out. It's so good, and you're like, yeah, man, I could have done that a week ago. Probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. And then that's the other thing with having deadlines, right? In that same sense that I found for like really, really big projects, I just have to give myself a deadline and have other people holding me accountable. So if it's like a ticketed event, I put it live and tickets go on sale. We're going to do this thing this day. and then I have to get it done.
I've seen some that they, different events that you put on and performances that you put on. And I think about what all is involved in it. But true, once you announce that you're doing it, you're locked in, man.
Yeah, you got to do it. And that's the next big one. I haven't had the courage to put the date out.
But you know what it is.
Oh yeah, I know what it is.
Okay.
I just have to put the date out, and then I'll just have to do it.
Okay.
So you're more deadline motivated.
Often, yes. Yeah. That's a kind of, I mean, it could just be ADHD, most likely, but it could also just be that, that's how I get stuff done. I just know if I have a show that I'm going to exhibit work in and all the work's not finished, then I'll get it finished. If I have a public art piece, like this year, there was a deadline. If we're going to have the ceremony where we unveil it.
Beautiful, by the way.
Thank you.
I love the community impact of it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
beautiful.
But it got done because there was a deadline.
Okay.
Otherwise, I'd still be working on it.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing where in the process of making art, my first career, like I said, was starting off in advertising, and everything was a deadline. Everything was a deadline. What I managed to keep from that experience is I do put deadlines for myself once I start a piece. If I start a piece, there are times, and I encourage people to do this. If someone says they're really stuck with a piece, I always encourage them to take that piece, turn it against the wall so you're not looking at it, come back to it a week later, a month later, 3 weeks later, flip it back around, and the painting will tell you, you'll be looking at it fresh, and it will tell you, this is what I need. This is what I need in order for you to finish me up. And it's just one of those small tips that you don't necessarily get in art school, but that I've learned over the years. If you get stuck with a piece, you're frustrated with a piece, turn it around, even if it's for 2 or 3 days, turn it back around and look at it fresh. And in most cases, like, okay, I see what I need to do here. I need to drop this color over here. I need to change the composition a little bit, but yeah, I see where I'm going here. And I can finish. Because there's also the thing about when on the subject of finishing, how do you know when to put the last brushstroke down? How do you know what that is? Because beyond that, just one step beyond that, you can say stuff is starting to get convoluted here.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you just stop 2 or 3 brushstrokes before, that's a trick. That's something that all these years I still come to that place of, all right, so when am I done here? May take 2 or 3 days before you realize that it's done. Because I, like most artists, like you were saying earlier with some of your paintings you're not particularly crazy about, I can look at something and say, if I were to do this piece again, I would do this, I'd change that, and then I'd erase that and paint over this and bring out this. I could do that with every piece that I've ever done. But never satisfied.
Yeah.
I come to terms with it, that it's the end, and it's good enough for me to, but today I could take a piece I did 10 years ago. It's like, all right, man, if I were to do that again, I could see something that is in someone's collection or in an institution. I'm standing there looking at my piece that I made, I don't know, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I'm like, man, every time I look at this, I see that one little area that I would do different if I were to do it again, but no one else knows. Right?
Yeah. Well, something I've been asking myself is, will in the effort of like this extra thing I could do, will it actually make the painting better? Because as I work on it, there's some things I can spend a lot of time on. Let's say putting detail in. And this is particularly important for like people who do representational art.
Yeah, like painting a pineapple. Right?
I can stress about colors or shadows or whatever in certain areas, but at the end of the day, the painting's not going to be any better. It's still just a pineapple. It's not going to be a really cool pineapple because it's more detailed. It's just going to be a detailed, boring picture of a pineapple. Like if the thing itself of what I'm doing, the concept isn't really good. Adding as much detail, it's like in graphic design, people put a drop shadow on it, and then they put an extra border, and then they change the font
and
to something
then a gradation
crazy.
from
it's just you're just adding stuff. It's like you can fill space, but like if there isn't a good concept
and the word itself, what word are you?
Like what ultimately, like what is the
that you're
what is
putting
the,
all these fonts and trying out?
Totally.
What's the word?
Totally. At that point, it's like if you don't have a clear message that you're trying to convey, putting a drop shadow on it isn't going to be the thing that makes me decide whether I'm going to buy or not. It's like, well, I thought I was going to get dryer cleaner, whatever I needed, but or this one has a drop shadow. So I think, it's
I'm
like
not
you're
moved
just
by
at
that.
this point, you're just trying to like get a pass.
Yeah.
So their boss comes in and is like, all right, I can see you did stuff I don't know how to do. Okay, great. You've been working.
I love well done graphic design though. I'm a chump for that. I just fall for that.
I had a life as a graphic designer. I was really into it.
Yeah, I just great design. It's my jam. It's my joint right there.
It just tells you a lot too. Like, even when I was out of town, I would look at club flyers. I'm like, oh no, the graphic designer kind of sucks. Maybe this place will suck. You know? But, like, do people think that deeply about it?
Of course.
Well,
Okay.
it's subliminal, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
it's like the best people hire the best people.
Yeah.
So we know that. Everyone knows that. Like, whether somebody told you that, you just know it. Like, if you show up and the place looks bad, you're gonna be like, probably isn't gonna be very good.
You know, bad font choices. Really bad font choices to me is like, ouch. Just just stick a knife under my ribs. That's awful.
It's like, how do you not see that? How those are like the same thing? Or I noticed this at a restaurant. They used it said pull and push or something, or in and out or whatever. But they had a script type. But they were both uppercase. It was like an uppercase I and uppercase in. And I'm like, those aren't supposed to do that.
No.
It was just horrible.
No.
You know what I mean?
No. But they swear up and down it's good.
Oh.
Yeah.
Especially if it's the guy who owns the place.
He's like, what are you talking about?
He owns the place. It's like, yeah, I like this. I thought, what do you think about this? I came up with this. It's like, yeah, man, how do you tell the dude it sucks?
The graphic designer did not approve of the way you
all
use
caps cursive,
upper caps cursives back to back.
I hate it. Oh my god!
So forgive me. I
want to ask you some personal questions.
We're snobs on that.
Yeah. I want to like talk more about you as a person, as a unique individual.
Okay.
Can we steer the conversation more inwardly?
Are
you comfortable with that?
I'm sitting on the passenger side of my best friend to ride, man.
All right. Hell yeah.
Scrubs.
Yeah, of course. I know the song.
Of course, we all know the song, but it's one of those songs that's another episode.
Yeah,
let's go to the personal.
Yeah.
Personal. How personal? Let's see how personal I can get.
Yeah. So why do you do this?
Man, it's a compulsion. It's a compulsion. One, it's the one thing I know I can do well, and I think in this life, how wonderful if you can find one thing that you can do well. I find it interesting when I look at people who are branding themselves, and it's like, I'm this, particularly this. I'm a content creator. I'm a this, and I'm a that, and I got da. And you're not good at all of those.
Right.
One of those you're really good at, but I think people have this need to kind of have a loaded resume of what they do. For me, this is the one I can do a number of things really good. This is the one thing I do best. And for the time that I'm living this life, this existence, this incarnation, I want to give the best of what I can make or what I'm capable of into the world. That's what I want to leave. That's what I present in real time, and that's what I want to leave residue of after I'm gone. So art, creativity, it's what I do best. Ask me to build a bridge. You don't want me building a bridge, bro. You don't want me doing the math. You don't want me doing any of that.
I mean, that's a really good answer. I think that makes a lot of sense. Compulsion. So is it more of like, you can do it and there's a sense of security in that? Or is it more, because you said compulsion as well. Could you kind of give me a little more detail on that?
It's something that drives you. It's something that just kind of, it's not always pushing you. Sometimes it's just taking you by the elbow and just kind of leading you along. I have heard it described as, that term, art is a jealous mistress. She's calling. You could be doing something else and she calls you to do this. Why does a 5-year-old take a crayon and just, why?
Yeah.
The act of that, what is that about? And I got it early. It's something that I remember having a dream that I woke up from in a cold sweat where I couldn't make art anymore. In the dream, it was just as real as can be, man. And I couldn't draw. I didn't, composition, couldn't do simple shading on an apple. I just didn't have it anymore. And I woke up from that dream It was like I was on the verge. I may have been crying. I certainly had tears in my eyes. Like, oh man, whoa, whoa.
Man.
That felt real, and it felt like having something, a leg cut off or an arm cut off, and I would absolutely miss it. Here's my thing on art, and we can get to your next question. For me, art has been art. Art is the ultimate lover. Art has never lied to me. Art has never said that I'm too much. Art has never said I'm not enough. Art has been patient with me. Art has taught me. Art has been understanding and compassionate with me, and so incredibly giving to me. I say art is the ultimate lover. It is, and so I say art is my first girlfriend, which is probably why I've gone through so many different relationships. They all realize it's like, look, I think you love your art more than me. No, baby, no, baby, I love you more than the art. No, I love the art more than you.
Well, it shows in the work, at least. I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
And that makes me think too. I believe I wrote this article on you.
Mhm.
You're a PK, pastor's kid, right?
Absolutely, man.
But like everything that you would say, the way you were describing art, I feel like someone could replace it with God,
Oh.
or like your love or something. Like you said, the ultimate lover. It's like I feel like art is really your ministry.
I've preached that sermon, brother.
Really?
I've preached
Yeah.
that sermon.
I totally believe that art is your ministry, and it's like kind of how you evoke change in the world. I don't know.
We've had this conversation. It was one of our earliest conversations when we were talking with each other about our backgrounds and our families in church and in ministry and being deeply involved in it, not just, going for an hour and then leaving,
Oh
but
no, like
deeply involved
either
in.
Sunday all day, and then Wednesday, and then Saturday for something.
Don't
and
forget choir rehearsal on Thursday night.
Back at the back of the back.
4 days a week, at least 3 days a week
at
at
least
church.
3.
Every week, on and on and on. And so, but yes, that the term agape love, brotherhood, is in part what I tie my art to, and to call it a ministry. When I was a kid, say 12 years old, 13 years old, being in church, it was always, well, you need to draw for the Lord. You need to draw. You need to make art for Jesus. And I'm like, okay, so does that mean I just draw Jesus and sandals and Noah's
Coloring book for Jesus.
and Noah's Ark and the animals? Because visually, that's all you got. It's certainly that's all you see at 12, 13, 14 years old. And so it just felt really limiting of, yeah, man, but I want to draw Thor and I want to do like Spider-Man comic books.
Like Jesus can be in there. But like, dang.
There's an artist who has this really cool Jesus as a comic book hero kind of thing. It's amazing. He's like in Barcelona. Anyway.
Does he do it in frames and panels or like a comic book?
No, they're like in panels, but he has like these moments where it's like Superman, but it's Jesus, but he's like super buff. So he's like this huge, like thick.
I love it.
This like, I don't know. It's like Jesus, the passion.
I love
is
it,
there
man.
with this big.
Now that I missed.
Graphic
That I
novel,
missed.
all the muscles and everything.
Like 40 years
It's
ago,
great.
I could have come up with that and still be living off the residues of that. I didn't make the connection. I mean, there was a clear separation between things I associated with the church and then the things I really wanted to do. Because I knew I was going to work for Marvel, man. That was my dream. Marvel at DC, I just knew it.
Yeah.
So now I'm thinking, dude, if you had blended Jesus with superhero and your Conan Barbarian stuff that you're doing, shit.
I mean, yeah, I feel like the Bible could make a good graphic novel. I'm sure
it could be
I'm sure
gory as
there's
hell.
some good ones.
It could be.
Yeah.
It could be really
It would
violent because
the
it was
Bible
violent.
is, though.
It's violent.
That's the thing. It's like, don't blaspheme and start changing the way the text is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's
if you don't
what it
like
is.
it, that's your fault.
If you don't like
this is God's word.
This village, don't let anything stand above a blade of grass. Thus saith the Lord. Oh shit.
Yeah.
That means babies.
Genocide.
that's yeah.
There's a lot of genocide in that.
Yeah.
So
it could be there's some Thanos stuff in the Bible.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting because I draw on a lot of that in some of my work. Visually, I like to play with these like biblical themes because I look at them. I'm so detached from them as far as like the religious context. Personally, I don't even, they to me fit in the same kind of space as mythology of like
Greek mythology.
Yeah. These like great historical stories that are like larger than life, and the characters are larger than life, and they're deified or literally working with the gods, and miracles happen, and it's times different. So like, don't expect to walk on water today, but it happened back in the day because it was back in the day.
Yeah.
There was, and the same thing goes with, mythology. That's kind of the idea, is it's a story that is telling the truth or some truth, some meta truth, but the story itself has to do it in a more human way that we can understand.
Yeah.
And the truth is eternal, but the story can kind of be anything. And I think we often get it twisted where we're like, no, the story is the truth. And it's like, no, the story is not the truth. The truth exists in there. It's like the idea of truth that exists in fiction. There's truth in Shakespeare, but those aren't true stories. Right. So there could be truth in the story of any story that can be inspiring or compelling or divine without it needing to be history.
Think about every culture's origin story. Even on this continent, amongst First Nations and First People, every group had a different origin story and mythology. Any tribe in Africa, any tribe in what we now call South America, you go back far enough, they all have their own origin story. And within that origin story is always the fantastical.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that we're all living on a turtle. The world rests on the back of a turtle.
Yeah.
There are people who lived and died believing that to be true.
Well, there's something about that. This is kind of a whole different convo, very philosophical, that I think like is poetic. And as an artist, I draw a lot on that, is this idea that there's some things that is the explanation being something you cannot fathom that makes no sense is the answer that we need. Because maybe that's the truth.
Yeah.
That the answer to like, what is the world? What is the universe? If I was to tell you in reality, it would make less sense than we're sitting on a turtle. So, and the idea, there's like comfort in this idea that
we're sitting on a turtle?
Yeah, that it doesn't, like when you say it, it's like, that's absurd though. That makes no sense. How would you know? It's like, bro, the universe doesn't follow the way you think it does.
No.
You're not going to understand it. Let me tell you, it being on a turtle is just the beginning. It gets way crazier the further you go, right? Like that's the thing, because that's the way it is.
That's
like,
the way it is.
If you're just trying to know what the sun is and Venus and gravity and radio waves, like to really break shit down to particles and how they can be attached and detached and appear, like
and
it
the quantum,
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you start getting into
and
the
then
quantum
even
field.
if you do fit in like the Newtonian principles of science and you really start to understand what your body is, and it's a chemical reaction, burning and energy emitting and all these things, like it doesn't make any sense. Ultimately, like it makes sense in a petri dish, but then you try to extrapolate that to you being a whole human being and having like to fart and be embarrassed about that.
Yeah.
It's like there's a whole bunch of other shit in there that I don't know.
Yeah.
I hope this makes any sense. I'm like, I really hope you guys understand what I'm saying.
Yes.
But like, there's a human within you that has all kinds of uniquely human worries. Like, if I fart, it's embarrassing. I hope nobody heard it. If they smell it, I hope they didn't think it was me. Right. And that exists kind of like amongst us as humans.
Indeed.
It's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
I don't think turtles worry about that. But there's a lot of these bigger things that like the turtles worry about that we also worry about in the exact same way that we may not even be privy to. And that's like survival, reproduction.
We all share that.
Yeah, we share. I
all
feel like
share
we're steering off art. I mean, obviously art is kind of sits on these things. I want to bring it back. So what led you to that, the motive we were talking about earlier today, why you do this, the compulsion? Could you give me some kind of backstory? Because you already did a little bit about being a kid and drawing and comic books and things that were interested. But what led you to like the motive or the place that you are now that allows you to exist where you are compelled? How did you get to that compulsion? Was it always there? Were you born just from the get-go, or was there...
At a very young age, the family lore is that at a very young age, I was grabbing pencils and drawing on whatever. I think my mom was really worried about me drawing on the walls or poking myself in the eye. So my grandmother tells a story that they would take pens and pencils, because I like pencils more than even crayons, and they would take them away from me. And then at a certain point, they realized, oh, Jesus, this baby's doing something. And they just let me do what I wanted to do. I didn't come from an art family per se. We never went to museums. We didn't go to galleries. We didn't have art in the home. So a lot of it was really motivated of what I do. I was always encouraged. No one ever told me stop drawing. I was always encouraged.
Do you remember the first like piece of art that really captivated you?
Ironically enough, it was a Vincent van Gogh piece.
Tell me that story.
That's the story you want to hear.
Yeah.
So I'm probably 7, and there's I'm living in Corpus Christi, Texas. I'm staying with my grandmother. My memories for the environment was the streets weren't paved with tar, asphalt. They had crushed oyster shells. So wherever you walked, you had this crunch and this little dust that came up on your shoes. They had agave plants, cactus all around the front yard. So I'd walk through there, took a left, and I was going to vacation Bible school at a school that was down the street. And so I'd get in, and they herd all of us kids into the cafeteria, and we were going to do an art project. And so they had what I now know were copies, laminated copies of Western art masterpieces. Picasso was in there, I'm sure. I can't remember who all was in there, but I gravitated towards one piece. And she said, pick one that you like, and then you want to draw your version of it. She didn't use the word replicate. She says, you draw it the way that you see it. And so the one that I reached for was Van Gogh's Bedroom at Arles, the first one. Can't exactly tell you what fascinated me about it. One thing I do remember is that there weren't any people in it, and there weren't any animals in it. So there's no Mickey Mouse, no Snoopy, no lion roaring, no horse running through it. It was just this room. And then if you look at that piece, all the primary colors are there. And then that bed, sure, they look comfortable. So I grew up I had 2 brothers, so the 3 of us all shared a room. So I grew up sleeping on the top bunk.
Yeah.
Right. So I saw this bed, and it just looked huge, and it looked like, man, that looks like a real comfortable bed. And maybe if I had a room of my own, that looks like the room I'd like to have if I had a bedroom of my own, because I shared a bedroom till damn near high school. So that was my first kind of introduction to, because there's a point.
Can I point something out?
Yeah, please.
I wonder if you noticed this, that part of what makes that painting good is the way that the context in which you received it.
Yes.
The meaning, right?
Yeah.
Because the bed, the way you're telling me this context to the bed is a really interesting thing as an artist who makes art, to think that other people can interact with your work in a way that you have no intention necessarily.
I don't know that.
I don't think his idea was I'm going to make the most comfortable bed so that every child can feel you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it has that, there's something, anyway, I just wanted to, I'm wondering if that shows up. I'm sure that shows up in your work for other people as well.
Sure.
But continue the story.
Yeah.
That was
so I remember now that's a piece that I'd love to have. If I don't know where that disappeared. We moved a lot from that time. After that time, we moved around, relocated a couple places, but that's a piece that if I could, conjure up that again, of
your version,
my version of it, that would be really cool. So imagine this full circle of being introduced to this Dutchman's work at a very young age, and then years later, being in Holland, being able to speak his language and standing in front of that piece where you can even see, tears just welled up in my eyes standing in front of the original,
man,
yeah. So that was like the first original piece that I remember. And then there was a field trip that I took in elementary school where we went to the museum, and it was the work of a man by the name of John Catlin.
Okay.
Catlin was really more of a scientist. He was sent out with expeditions and surveyors in order to look for rivers, look for, where development could happen. And at this time, he was painting the different tribes that they encountered along the way. So it's all these beautiful little watercolors and oil paintings of different tribes having different ceremonies in their everyday life. So that was another one that all these years later, I mean, living in Corpus Christi, I never ran into any natives. I didn't know what a Kiowa was or anything. Indian had a feather in their head and whoop, 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 whoop. So to end up in Oklahoma, which has more federally recognized native tribes, was, again, this kind of full circle where you're early in your life would kind of give you, and you don't realize this until later on, kind of give you a clue of where, it kind of sets the it can very well set the spores, the trail, the rail for where you end up going. But you don't necessarily see that until years on down the road. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like baked into this meta path.
That's what that was
this
about.
existence of
Yeah,
something
that's
else
what
out
that
there.
was about. That's
Yeah.
why I do this. That's why I lean towards this more than that.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's crazy how that works.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things, you know, I'm gonna be 35 soon.
Kid.
Yeah, I'm like, I imagine I have a long way to go to still figure out what I'm
excited
doing.
about that for you. My thing is always this, and it's a prayer that I do pray.
Yes.
Lord, let me live long enough to actualize the things that you're giving me, that I see. Let me live. Now, I know that won't ever be the case, because probably even on my deathbed, it'll be like, man, I really like to do that, man. If I had another 3 weeks, I can knock this out. But let me be busy about the concepts and the ideas that have come to me before I check out.
Yeah.
I'm good with it. It's part of the process. You're not special in the sense that we all, the high, the low, the wealthy, the poor, we all go out, transform, transmute, whatever. But it's like, man, I sure like to hang in there long enough to make this piece or do this project or whatever.
Yeah. So you like the idea of like, both of you actually, this is a good question. You like the idea of like still doing your work, like, and then dying? Like there isn't like I'm chilling and then I die?
No, I want to be making something, be busy with something on the last day. No hurry.
No hurry. Get that to you.
But on that last day, I want to at least have been working on something, and then we can leave that unfinished piece or whatever it is, and that'll be the last piece. Pablo Picasso's last work of art is a self-portrait, and you see a man basically just looking in the face of death. Yeah.
I have to look that up.
He made it the day that he died. He made this drawing.
Jeez.
And you can see the power in it, and there's this kind of the beauty within it of someone facing death, and he lived to be 90 plus years old.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, it's like he's one of the few artists who get to capitalize on his fame.
Yeah,
because he lived long enough.
Yeah,
it seems like, you know, I don't know. That's like a whole nother thing about art.
Capitalizing on your
work, making money with it. You know, I think about I've been thinking about these ideas of art and what makes us do it, and also what makes us not do it. Like what prevents us from doing it. Resistance. I listened to the Who Arted podcast episode you're on, and you shouted out the what's it called? Art of War of Art.
The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield.
Yeah, I actually just recently read it.
It's worth it's worth
Chris Davis. Shout out to Chris Davis.
Shout out
the
Chris.
One who was like, you gotta read this book.
It's legit. And
it's really
and he's actually a screenwriter. He's not a visual artist.
Right.
He's a screenwriter.
Well, as you said, it's creativity.
It's creativity.
It's the skill of creativity. It's like the process of
the technology,
right.
the religion, the practice of creativity is all baked in that. But that idea, and when I've encountered the concept, it made, you know, it's like there's this recognition. It's like, yeah, that's what I do. That's what I do. You know, I that's the mental.
Could you summarize kind of the idea of the book for those who haven't read it?
Resistance is when a concept, an idea, a brain, you know, something comes up in you, and you feel how powerful it can be, how beautiful it could be. It sings a song that you recognize, and then immediately behind that comes this voice that says, yeah, nah, man, you know, you that's not real. That's stupid.
Yeah, you can't do that.
You can't do that.
Yeah,
you don't have the time, you don't have the talent, you don't have it comes right in behind it. That's resistance. Resistance, and as he says in the book, resistance will ride you to the grave. Resistance is a lawyer that's a better debater than you. It is a murderer that breaks into your house. It is a robber that steals your ideas and your concepts, and more importantly, your energy.
Yeah.
it steals all that stuff. And so whenever I encounter someone who says, I used to really be into art when I was in school, and I still think about it, I like to do it. I'm like, why don't you? Well, there she is. There it is. There it is.
Yeah.
And you've got it validated. It sounds rational to you.
Totally.
And so that's why you don't do art anymore. Yeah. That's resistance.
Something I kind of want to like throw in that I've been thinking about is that is definitely resistance, is the fear of rejection. So there's this concept that I'm like learning about in therapy of like, that I'll avoid doing things because I don't want to be rejected. So it could be a hard conversation with my wife, and then she's like, well, I don't want to do that. And then I have to deal with her saying, I don't want to do that.
Ooh.
And so rather than that, I'm like, how can I create other forms of dysfunction to just like live around this wound? And that can be a big deal like in a relationship, but it can also be a small thing of like, I don't want people to see my art because then what if they don't like it? And they're like, yeah, I don't know, it's kind of sucks.
Yeah.
Then I have to feel that, the rejection from some other person. But that's only there if you think it's sweet. Like if you also think it sucks and they're like, yeah, it sucks. You're like, well, I know. You're not like, I know. Like it's not,
I know.
I would never, it's garbage. But if you're like, I'm kind of proud that I did this. Like this is of all the things, it's not the best art in the world, but I think it's cool. And I'm really proud that I did it, but I'm nervous that other people will think it's lame. And then that'll mean that I'm lame.
Well, don't show it to anybody.
Mm.
Where does the need to show it to anybody comes from except for validation?
Yeah.
And if you like it,
Yes.
and if you don't like it, you show it to someone hoping that they'll say it's good. Okay, that's the validation that I needed.
Yeah.
But if you, I would say to people like, just make art for you. Stick it in a portfolio, in a book, or in a drawer, or under your bed. Just make it for you, for the process, for the beautiful creative energy that it's better than digging a ditch.
Yeah.
Just make art. But the first thing I hear people say, do you think I can sell this? No. It's the first thing that comes out of my mouth. Do you think I could sell this? Do you think anyone would buy this? I said, would it make it any better if they could? Would it make the art better if someone wanted to buy it? Oh, I hadn't thought about it like that. No, you're way on down the road, man. Come back here. Come back. And let's just focus on the creative process and the creating it and the making it. But that idea that, and it goes back to childhood, you're coloring and you want to show it to mommy and daddy. Oh, that's beautiful, sweetie. It could be shit, but it's like, oh, baby, that's precious. And you continually want that. You spend the rest of your life kind of wanting that till you get to a place where you say, I don't care whether anybody likes it or not.
Yeah. I've kind of gotten that way with my artistic expression because especially with the magazine format, like you can feel like you're just doing the same thing again and again. We were talking about this earlier with like being in the era of content creation, where it's like, okay, like you're going to watch this for 30 seconds and like it and like maybe subscribe or like, it's
or move on.
Yeah.
What stays
Did you
with
just
you
like
now?
it because you like because you're my friend? Like it's like
all those things go into consideration. All those
but it's
things.
like I feel like everything I put out, I'm like, this shit is so hard. Like I don't care what you say. Because like I made this very experimental. I'll have to show you. So the kids, you're gonna love this.
Yeah.
It's a necklace, but it's multi-purpose. But like some people were like, "Are you serious?" And the other people were like, "That shit's hard." But I knew it was hard. Didn't care. I just wanted to see your face. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But like, it's just like you have to really be like delusional. I think you have to be delusional and be like, I am number one. Even if you just say it to yourself, like look in the mirror and say, I am number one. And then you might actually be number like 101. But since you thought like that, then you became 100. Then you keep going down 99,
Preach.
Like,
Preach.
Wow.
Long as I live and troubles
vocals.
arise. Yes, Lord.
I had to shake my head to get a little.
Some vibrato in there.
Oh my God.
Oh, man.
Shoot.
But as far as everything I see that you all do, the photographers, the graphic design, everything, I'm like, man, this shit goes hard. This shit's coming out of quote unquote flyover country America. This shit could be coming out of Barcelona. It'd be coming out of Paris, France. I love it. I mean, ASLUT is just,
Thank you.
it's
When it's
yeah.
about covering people, like even this show's format, like it's all about like showing that we're just as dope as someone on the coast. That's like just because you live over there doesn't mean that like it doesn't mean anything, you know?
Mhm.
We all have such varied experiences. And I think coming up here and then being committed to your art makes you a certain type of savage about your
Mhm.
creation.
I agree. I will say New York City is the exception, only in the sense of,
It's just too cool.
it's just too
Yeah.
cool.
It's just the
It just
coolest.
is. But outside of that, I think the shit that you all make is as good as anything that'll come out of Austin, Chicago, LA,
But we're not in New York yet.
Miami.
New
All
York
right,
is-
no, it's okay. No, it's okay.
No, I'm just saying.
Listen, no,
no, we're
clock
not.
us.
This is the moment.
Clock it.
This is my
No, we're
moment
not.
where it's like, okay, I got to get to the point where Skip is like, this is
Skip's
like New
some
York.
New York
Then I'm like,
shit.
all right, we've made it.
No,
We've made it.
here's what I love about Tulsa. Chicago, these places that we look to, they pretty much have maxed out as far as where do you go? How does Chicago become elevated? How does Chicago become more Chicago? Tulsa is one of those places like there's room to elevate.
Define what it means.
Okay? There's room to define and elevate what Tulsa is, because there's a part of me outside of the 1920s and 30s where it was the oil capital of the world. I feel at times at Tulsa, and then the Tulsa Sound thing, I feel as though there's still this kind of search for what is Tulsa, and I think that's a good thing. It for one thing, it didn't have to be one thing.
And it ain't got to be Oklahoma City or Dallas.
No,
Come on, y'all.
no, or Austin, or Austin. So for a while there, I saw it like I could see that Tulsa was trying to do the Austin thing. You're not going to be Austin, and even Austin isn't even really Austin
And then
anymore.
Austin
Yeah.
has all the damn Microsoft people
and the traffic
horrible.
and then so I think Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Tulsa specifically has room to be a quirky, cool, uniquely cool in its own kind of way a place, even with like hood shit that goes on in rural country stuff. This is the Badlands, man. For the long Indian Territory, if you can make it to Oklahoma Territory, you escape justice. Okay.
Yeah, you're a bandit.
You were
Yeah.
a bandit.
Outlaw.
You were an outlaw. You could come here
Yeah.
and be cool and do whatever you wanted to do. You could rob banks if you wanted to.
I was talking, I had for holidays, talking to the brother-in-law who's from Boston. No, gosh, Philadelphia. He has like a drum company. It's called Philadelphia Drum Co. I don't know where Boston came from. Anyway, Philly, and we were talking about Tulsa versus Philly. And he was just like, you have so much space. And he was really impressed by just kind of the way things move and very enchanted by Tulsa. Like if you live in a big city and you come to a little town like this, that's just a little bit urban and it kind of has culture, but none of the giant challenges with urbanism. And I was explaining, or at least as we're talking about kind of the cultures of people that find themselves here, everybody who came to Oklahoma, like the Sooners, were people that did not want to be with the civilization.
No.
They did not want to go live in Boston or Philly or New York, which was already very much cities and very much had trade, very much had like futures you could follow in there. But they're like, no, I want to go as far away from everybody and have my own isolated piece of pie.
Yeah.
So you have this kind of rebel, renegade, kind of do-it-yourself, DIY, at least on the European influence that's here.
And then blacks and natives were forced to walk the trail.
Yeah.
Well, they were, but think about the thing about Greenwood, about North Tulsa, is that those people were coming from Mississippi.
Mm-hmm.
They were coming from Louisiana. They were coming from Georgia. And I think about what it took for them, because imagine, not only did they want to get away from, you got people wanting to get away from urban areas, you had others who just desperately needed to get away from a plantation system, a built-in, baked-in system that would always keep you under a suppressed structure from birth, cradle to grave.
Yeah.
So I've seen some of the ads that they used. They lured people here. They sold Oklahoma to blacks in the South. It's like, this is the promised land. I have a piece that hung for a while at the 100-year commemoration called Promised Land. And I think about the courage it took for these people to leave all they knew in Georgia or picking cotton in the Delta And there were people saying, "Child, where are you going? What are you doing? You don't know anybody out there. Are you crazy?" Yeah. Crazy enough to know that there's something else beyond.
It's the pioneer spirit, though. That's the thing. Like, I'll just do it myself.
Yeah.
I'll create my own civilization, goddammit. I'll create my own townhouse, my own bank, my own, all the shit. I'll just do it. We'll get our own doctor.
They did.
Yeah.
Our own system, economic, all of that. So I just feel like that's kind of built into the bedrock here as far as culture and people. And how many times have I met someone who's been from someplace else? They just came here for a conference or came to see a family reunion or whatever, and or decided to stay. And they're from, like, man, why'd you move here from LA? Dude, if I knew this was here, I would have left LA earlier. Really? You like it here? Yeah, man, I love it here. It's easy. People can navigate it. It's not as and people always say, "Well, you guys are friendly here. People are friendly. People wave. People really say hi."
Tulsans don't know how nice it is. I'm telling you.
I think you
like
have
people
to,
who grew up here
they
don't know. It's like, go to a place like
they don't know.
East Coast. We were talking about it because that's where I grew up, and my brother-in-law was just marveling at how nice people were. Like, we come to we're going through Walmart.
I'm like, I have a whole different perspective. Yeah, you're right.
As we're going through the Walmart parking lot, somebody stopped to like let me go when they had the right of way, and I was trying to wave them, and then eventually I just went, and I was just like, "That's a thing here," and he's like, "That's insane."
It's like, no, you.
So what's your perspective? You sound like you got another perspective on that.
In everybody business, everybody grandma in everybody business. If you're really super Tulsa, but it's nice because it's like everyone's here. Then it's like, girl, everybody's here. You know what I mean? But it's nice.
Go somewhere for 2 years, and you'll miss. That was my thing that brought me back.
When I would travel, I will always have like a base here. I love Tulsa, but it's just I have a huge family, so it's like,
of course.
Like,
so it's nice to get away from all that. But I guarantee you,
a little bit.
living in the Netherlands, which I had a wonderful setup.
Do you like the Dutch?
I do like the Dutch.
I just wasn't feeling them when I was there.
I do. I
like Italian.
What I feel from them comes purely from being immersed and living with them.
They're serious about the bikes.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was in the bike lane on accident. And he was like,
"Oh, fool!"
I don't know how to. I was like, "Oh my god, just being American."
Cardinal sin.
And he said something I just couldn't understand. It was like, "Quack quack quack quack." I was like, I know he's talking shit to me.
Yeah, I mean, they're not the only people I like. I mean, I love Brazilians. The ones that I've encountered, absolutely love people in Brazil. But my love for the Dutch comes from familiarity with them and their language and their history and their customs and all of that. Their history is just as the colonial history is awful. It's really bad. But I will say this:
they kind of invented capitalism. Yes.
They were the Dutch, the East Indies, that company that was the first international corporation in the world. Yeah. And it was all to get spices to put on top of their shitty food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But they were deep in the slave trade too, right?
I think the Dutch were kind of like the masters of it, right? They were like the best at it.
So this is another layer to the Dutch
they
thing.
went the hardest?
So I was at like a 5-star hotel, and like I just left Russia. Well, Russia's some fly shit. Love Russia.
Yeah.
Shout out to Moscow.
Shout out to
Moscow.
Yeah.
But there was this guy, there were these people, and I was eating my breakfast, and like maybe I was just spoiled by like the people in Russia. But I was just like, are they gonna like come get it? And then they just looked at me like,
that's a code.
They're like, like nigga, I've seen you before. Like, it was like, girl, I'm here at a 5-star. I was like, making sure I was over here and grab this stuff.
Yeah.
But they were just looking at me like, like, I'm like, what?
Cultural differences. Because if you think about it, for the biggest part of,
I'm like, am I a snob for that? But like, also like, that's not how the hotel was in Russia.
No,
that's comparable.
They can be a little. You have to keep in mind, even their cuisine. It's like farmers' food. It's like peasant farmer food. They don't have any high cuisine. I mean, of course you love the Italians. Their food is just the bomb.
Well, they're nice and they're like they're like one, like,
It's a much more romantic. It's warmer. The climate is warmer. You start getting up in the Holland, everything is just about bread and potatoes and a protein. And it
I have this like theory
carries
about
over.
that. Like what the more north you get,
the colder the people are.
right? I mean, literally, right? Like
Yeah.
and then you also get this thing where it's harder to survive when it's cold. Like it's just
Yes.
harder to
They're
live
in
there.
survival land.
Right. So like you have to fucking work while the sun's up and you got to make hay while it shines.
Yes.
Because if you don't, you're going to fucking die.
So imagine that on
So
a
people don't play
generational
around.
level.
People
No, they
don't have
don't.
time to be silly. It's like, no,
They don't.
dig up those potatoes
But
or we're going
Russia
to
is
die.
technically higher. And
Yeah,
I don't
but
know
like
the Russians they were on it. Good people.
Well, but the Russians also had this incredible long monarchy. You know, St. Petersburg, you look at the architecture, the Dutch don't have any type of architecture in the way that the Dutch do, the Russians do, or the French do. They're a little country of seafaring people.
Can I
who are
interrupt real
hemmed
quick?
in. Yeah.
We'll have to continue this conversation.
I hope we will.
About the Dutch. Yeah,
I hope we
actually, because
will.
I know we could for
Yeah.
free
a
the
long time.
Yeah,
Are you
the
familiar with
Dutch.
this?
I am.
Okay. Well, then you know how it works.
Yeah.
Can I get your permission to use these?
Man, I don't. Yeah, just for the audience. Yeah.
Well, okay.
For our new
I was
viewers.
going to.
For our new viewers,
Since you
yeah.
know, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so how these work is I put them on, and it allows me to see your creative aura.
Okay.
I have psychics in my family, and I'm using the same techniques.
He's from a long line.
Yeah, no joke, actually. And so I put these on, and it allows me to see your aura. I won't know what it means. I say aura, that's not really... I'll give you a reading, is what it is. I'll give you a creative reading. I don't know what this is.
Okay.
I don't know where it's from. It's just what I see. And you will know what it is, and you will tell me what it is.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Beautiful.
All right, here we go.
Love it.
Okay, I'm seeing a campfire. I see a campfire looking up at the night sky. It's a cold sky, and I can hear the wood popping as the embers fly up into the sky. The stars are out. Oh, I just saw a shooting star. Man, I can smell the wood has a very pungent, the burning campfire smell is really coming off strong. What does that mean? What does a campfire mean to you?
We didn't go camping a lot growing up, but as an adult, I had a number of camping experiences, literally in different places around the world. There's the obvious thing of warmth. The idea of fire being both destructive, but also regenerative or providing warmth. Night sky. Ooh. The campfire is probably what I'm going to spend the most time with. Probably about 2 weeks ago out at Wampa, one of my neighbors, he put out a campfire. Man, we were out there for 3 hours just sitting there looking at this fire, drinking bourbon, And so it has this kind of mesmerizing quality that it has on us. On a personal level, I guess that's where I'd have to really...
Well, I mean, maybe it's just that. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something in your space that campfire's something it's showing up at least.
Now, the shooting star, I like to meditate on that, what that means, because I don't want... I realize that there's this idea of brevity and being a shooting star. It just flies across the sky and then it burns out and all of that. I'm not ready to burn out yet, man. I kind of feel like I'm just kind of cranking up, at least for the final chapter of my life, however long that
I'm
book
seeing another
lives.
thing here.
Get what you got.
I see you as a little boy. You are seated in a, it looks like a bedroom. You're alone and you're sitting on a stool and you're surrounded by like a huge pile of paper airplanes and you're sitting there crafting these paper airplanes. You have like the little paper hat. It's not the airplane, but the boat hat.
Yeah.
You've got one of those on, the newspaper hat, and you're creating these paper airplanes and you're very focused. And I can see the pile is big. I have no idea why or what you're planning to do with all these, but you're constructing.
I love that. I love that. And building up.
Yeah, you're like kind
amassing.
of deeply focused right now and just...
I like the idea of that boy at some point just taking all of those paper airplanes and going someplace and just sending them out to different parts of the world. You know, not just letting them all amass up, and but to actually create them and then send them out, let them fly into different points in all different directions. I like that idea. But I love making paper airplanes as a kid.
Have you made one recently?
Ooh, I have not.
Okay, maybe you should.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
maybe you
you.
should put one together.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, it may be something I introduce into my work going forward.
Okay. Hey, maybe that's what we're
Could
seeing.
very well
Premonition.
be. I like that.
Yeah.
I do.
Okay. I'm seeing another thing here. I see you. You're in the back of like a Cadillac, and you have a flower crown on, but you look very kind of like you've just come back from some big event. You're in a suit and tie, black tie, but like your tie's like this. It's not done. You're kind of the system's kind of breaking down the whole big black tie event facade, and it's just you by yourself in the back seat of like a Cadillac, or I guess it's a limo. That's what it is.
There it is.
That makes more sense.
That's what it is.
And you have this flower crown on your head, and it's like kind of
Tilted a little bit.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
tilted.
that. You know, I just recently was awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by an arts organization in Oklahoma City that I absolutely love and respect. The acknowledgement came out of nowhere to me.
Oh, okay.
And it was really, really moving. And I felt like I had just, of course, once it was over, everyone I've known, people I've known for 25, 30 years, people in the arts field, clients, patrons, were all there to support. And it was just really a heartwarming thing that, again, it's not as if I was calculating and working to get this. Is something someone contacted me and said, we just want to let you know that we want to recognize you with this Lifetime Achievement Award. And there are a number of different awards that were presented, but the Lifetime Achievement Award, and the first thing I said was, well, thank you so much for doing it while I was alive to receive it. I really appreciate that. And so it did feel kind of like a Hollywood moment. And I don't mind telling you, as soon as the event was over, yeah, man, I took my tie off, and but I received my laurel that night for years.
That's what it is.
Not just showing my work, but supporting the arts, supporting other artists, supporting art lovers, kids, arts programs. Hell, I help you. You need some help installing a show, I'll install it for you. Just this years of ministry.
Yes.
In the ministry of art.
Your paper planes.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm gonna take these off now.
That's good stuff.
Thank you. That's amazing,
good
because
stuff.
I every time I get these, I'm often nervous to say them because I'm like, it's not gonna make any sense. I don't know what it means.
Yeah, man, I don't know what you're talking about.
And I'm like, you could totally just be like, you're fucking full of shit.
And you can fill it in, but I think you're giving clues. You just give clues, and there's room for someone to place themselves into that. But the truth of the matter is,
no, I'm actually seeing.
Okay.
I'm seeing your image.
Well, let's
be clear about that.
Okay, I'm seeing.
You know what it means. You should.
Well, the limo thing, I knew exactly what it meant.
Okay.
And it's not a future thing, even though, it's not a future thing. It's something that is, that recognition will be a part of me going forward. Every day it will be present, because it's something that, I was talking earlier about validation. There's nothing wrong with validation in itself. It's not, especially when it comes from your peers. Other people are saying, we recognize you, we see you, we're thankful for you, we honor what you do and who you are.
Well, it's really well deserved. It's very well deserved. I mean, I wasn't kidding when I'm like, you're the best artist in Tulsa. I
got a couple other people I might stick in there.
There's people that are really good, but at least in my opinion, I'm just like, I don't know. Who else has a Lifetime Achievement Award?
Well, there is that. There's if you live long enough, if you live long enough.
See, this is why these awards are important, is so that you know that it's true.
Yes, I know it's true.
Life happens, it's easy for us to be like, resistance. I'm okay, but and maybe it's like, no. You have the proof here.
I know it's true.
It's factually,
I know I deserve it.
You are.
Yes. I get it.
Right in that fucking limo.
Yeah. Now, to somebody in Nebraska or wherever, it may not mean anything. I think about that too. It's like, it's kind of like, I remember when someone was, I was talking to a man whose name, if I said it, we all would know his name, but he and his wife had bought some art from me. I delivered the art to his house and we got into discussion. I was just kind of moaning and groaning about being in Oklahoma. It's like, man, it's like freaking purgatory here, man. I want to go to LA. I want to go to New York. I want to go get me a place in Williamsburg and Brooklyn, blah, 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 move to Paris. And he listened to me and he let me vent. And then he said, truth of the matter is, there's a lot of guys like you in those places that you're talking about. So there's guys with their dreadlocks and you're
He typecast you?
No, he was identifying me in the sense of, and he says, but there are not a lot of guys like it. Certainly, this is 20 years ago when we had this conversation, but he says, there's not a lot of guys like you here. He says, I just feel as though you'll get up there and you'll love everything around you. He says, but you won't make any impact necessarily, not in the way that you can make here. And so I kind of resolved myself with that, even as I resisted that. And so here we are. There's this point in your life where you have to let go of what you thought you were going to do and be fully in where you are. Or there'll be a frustration there that it's like, man, if only I lived in Amsterdam, and God, I've lived with that for years. It's like, man, why did I stay in Oklahoma, man? Why didn't I go here? Da, 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 da. At a certain point, you have to be fully in the life that you're living instead of constantly spending every sweet, precious day and draw of oxygen wanting to be someplace else. And it's totally understandable. But once you acknowledge that, hey, this is where I am, you do what you do here. You've created what you've created here.
Well, I feel like that's
somewhere else.
That's what I do.
True.
That's what I do. I'll get on. I love Miami, love Vegas, go to Venice, once a year, a couple times a year, and you can enjoy all of that. But even while you're out there, you're realizing, yeah, man, I wouldn't want to live it. I wouldn't want to live. This,
you wouldn't have to deal with that.
I just would not want to deal with this.
I feel like is a really good place for us to start closing.
Sure.
So as we're getting to this end, this is the point where we ask you, what are you doing? What are you working on?
Yeah.
What would you like to promote?
Right now, the film that I've been in, Merrick the Assassin, is a short. I'd be happy to, man. It's a independent film, short film that a buddy of mine who I've known for 25 years, he wrote it. It's probably something that's been in his file for years. And I've always challenged him. I was like, man, you're such a wonderful writer, really philosophical. He was a rapper, did the whole New York thing. We're going to make it in the business and had that experience, but he's always been a wonderful writer. And I said, dude, what are you going to do with this stuff, man? Don't die on me and leave all this for me to do something with, because I will. And so he contacted me about 6 months ago. He says, man, I'm going to take one of the manuscripts that I wrote, one of the short stories I wrote, and I'm going to turn it into a film. I'm like, bet, man, about time. I said, send it to me so I can read it. Send it to me. I read it. I'm like, well, who's going to play Merrick? He goes, you. I said, I am.
Do you have acting experience?
I have acting experience that goes all the way back to childhood. I as a child, I did TV commercials. We lived in Southern California. I had an agent.
What?
I got a portfolio that I still have the portfolio. We're down in the corner. The photographer's name, it's Hollywood, California. So I did TV commercials all through school. I did plays, drama, musicals.
So as you said, the spores had been laid.
It had all been laid. Even when I was in advertising, and I'm the creative director on the shoot, it's like someone wouldn't show up. It's like, man, I'll step in here and do this, man.
Right.
And I've done, as an adult, I've done mostly like community theater. But to be in front of a camera and to carry a role, I never really had to do that. But I knew I could do it. And he knew I could do it. He says, man, just be you. Be the dude that you are. And so the character is a hitman. And everyone says, John Wick, you got about 40 seconds. You got about 1:30 of violence up front. And then after that, it becomes this kind of philosophical journey for a man who feels this need. Suddenly, he's never felt it before. He feels this need for redemption, for healing, and more importantly, for forgiveness that he feels. And so it's just this kind of journey. Now, he's supposed to kill someone as a part of an assignment that he has. He doesn't kill this person. And that sets off a whole chain of events in which because he didn't kill this person, the people that hired him to do that are going to send someone for him. And he knows they're coming. So he probably has a few hours a day at most before this guy comes and kills him. And in that time, he has just this kind of beautiful. What would you do if you had? What would you do if you had 6 hours left to live? And let's say you'd never gone to an art museum before. You'd never.
So we're running out of time. Real quick. When does it come out?
It's in post-production now, so I don't have a clear date for you.
But
ideally, the first of the year.
Okay.
Coming 2025.
Ideally, coming in 2025. Merrick the Assassin. I definitely look forward to screening it here in Tulsa at Circle Cinema, putting that out in the universe. That is done. We're going to do that. It'll show a side of me that people who just know me as a visual artist will really be excited about.
I'm so excited.
So cool.
Yeah, so that's the main thing I've been really excited about for like the last 6 months, and I'm excited that it's about to come out. Other than that, making art, I'm helping a buddy of mine who has a space over on Peoria and Admiral that was a former body shop, and it was like a martial arts dojo. He bought the property. He wants to kind of help develop that whole corner right there. And so I've got art there. Really nice space. He finished out really well. And then we're kind of looking at what other art programs can we do? Who can we partner with to do different of our art events there? So
very cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's all the time we have left for our show. I'd like to thank Pop House, ASLUT, Citizens of Sound, Ian Upton, the Riverside studio, and of course, me, for this production. We're going to go live now at the Parlor with Lexi and Yango. And with that,
we just want to remind you guys to
keep the channel open.
Taking it all in before it comes crashing. Headed for the back room where the lights beaming. Not sure where this came from, but it's a surprise to me. See you in the morning, hope you're the first thing I see. I hope I don't remind you of who I used to be. I hope I don't remind you of who I used to be. Thought she was so pretty, the girl I always dreamed to be. The girl from New York City still has her